nonsense. I think this is the coolest thing about, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's really cool. Really cool. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm not saying pitchforks and, yeah, but maybe. That's right. Um, the footprint isn't gonna be any bigger from what I saw.
Coming out front a little.
All right, we should be back.
Great. I guess if we're recording, we'll go ahead and.
So to sum it up, we are closer to having a product to share with you all. I just need to incorporate the most recent information I got from Wichita
Okay.
into the document.
And so Wichita shared with you what the brief essentially that they gave to their vendor?
And I can send that to you all if you want to see it.
Okay,
I can
that,
send
that'd be
that.
good
Okay.
to see. The only other one that I think we all, oohed and ahhed over was the Chandler, Arizona, but that was like above and beyond.
I can ask for
but,
that too. I mean, no,
I don't think it's absolutely necessary. I think that one was very extensive and went into stuff that we probably aren't, isn't something we're necessary. Go ahead.
If we come out of this with um, a good collection of badges for different circumstances, and then also badges that can occupy a vertical space as opposed to horizontal space, and and thematic elements that can be carried throughout all the badges, except for maybe something like this, where this is something that we would reserve for use as a um, sort of a traditional or some other instance where we'd want to go back to a design that's older. Um, all the thing about font and all that stuff, it just seemed for Chandler, it seemed like it was a lot. But the
Well,
Green
yeah.
Valley and Wichita both seemed to have that sort of. It was specific enough, but it wasn't so. I don't know, overwhelming.
Yeah, and I think that I think the last direction that we gave was that the other part that we liked was kind of a narrative for different audiences, right? If you're at social media, here's some narrative best practices and how we talk about ourselves if we're as it versus something that's more of a press release to the media. It's different narratives and how we talk about ourselves as it relates to attracting residents and businesses and um, the region to come and enjoy our great city. So, and I believe one of those two, either Wichita or Green Valley, had that.
calling it a refresh.
Yep, yep. Okay, great. I'm glad we're making progress, and we'll look for something. Do we have a timeline or anything for the committee to?
I had the best plans this morning when I
Yes.
walked in. 4 meetings later,
Yeah.
I haven't touched it
Yeah,
today.
Yeah, okay, well, we have another meeting, I'm sure, on the books coming up, so
I hope
hopefully
to have
by
it done
then. we'll-
by then,
Yeah,
yes.
okay, great. So next item is the city website's been refreshed. So I asked the city administrator to have our brand manager come up with some, just kind of an update on what that refresh included, so that we can make sure that we're knowledgeable of those things, as well as when we start talking to residents, especially. I'm going to a Ward 3 meeting right after this. It'd be good to be able to let them know.
Right. So there's a memo in board docs, and Janet can speak to this at greater length, but the first page highlights the 8 or 9 different new design elements in here. And so, want to just go over those items? Janet, thank you.
Yeah, I had prepared the memo just to kind of give an overview of really the highlights of the new design. So obviously a refreshed color palette that focuses on an appealing and welcoming green and the blue that we already had, a warmer blue, keeping in line with the City of Brentwood's brand palette. The homepage banner images at the very top are an element that we can, with the new website design, we can more easily update those, and I can use those to highlight and link to any key news items or really any information we want to share. We didn't have that opportunity before with the previous design. I added an About the City of Brentwood section to really help serve as an identifier of when people come to our website, make sure they have the right Brentwood. If they're at the wrong Brentwood, well, at least they'll learn about Brentwood, Missouri. And the key resources section really allows for more ease of access to some of the key information and items that our website visitors are usually searching for, to really make it easier. And that's something that I can change out really easily, and based on any feedback we're getting, based on kind of what calls and inquiries we get from visitors and people contacting us, and really looking at the analytics as well. The calendar section is more prominent and visually appealing, and we've got the latest news section, which is a bit of a refresh from the previous version. So, yeah, so those are really the highlights. It was a many months long process, and really that initially started after the previous redesign that was done in September 2018, or that was launched in September 2018, was really much more extensive from the website that existed before then. It needed a lot of work. It had been, I think, prior to that previous redesign, it had been at least 8 years since anything had been done to it. So this one was really built on the work we did.
Yeah, and you've included kind of a before and after in the memo. That's good. So you are looking at analytics as it relates to the key resources, and so that's not built dynamically. That doesn't kind of automatically build for a user. If they keep coming back to the site and they always go to permitting, it doesn't automatically
Right.
reshuffle, right? It's
Yeah.
something you would have to actually do for every user.
Yeah, and so the 9 resources we have right now are really some of the key items that we know are important for people.
And then as far as responsiveness, was there anything changed or updated or made better for people on a desktop versus a mobile device or anything like that, or is
I
it?
think that was just kind of organic in the process.
Okay. No, it's definitely much easier to navigate. I think that making some of the decisions you made to reduce the size of the Brentwood logo itself, and so that key information is above the fold, or above the scroll anyway, I think is really important. I like the idea that we can rotate those banners out, which I assume,
Yeah,
would we be doing
that
that?
space before really wasn't usable.
No.
So
Are we doing that for like the grand opening or anything to promote those upcoming events?
Yeah, we
or-
could. We really just needed to get
Get it
it
launched.
launched and then
Understood.
focused in the midst of preparing for the grand opening.
So,
And we, obviously we have the separate Parks and Recreation microsite department header, and then as well as Brentwood bound. So,
yeah, I'd love to, you know, have a report every now and then on maybe some planning for what types of messaging, what type of events that might, we should plan on and work on to put in that rotation. Because that's something that can easily just fall by the wayside, and you've got a couple that hold in there, and then, you know, it'd be good
Yeah,
to
I
have a
mean, yeah.
calendar that says, okay, yeah, let's definitely hit
right,
these dates.
that's what I work with every day on a
Yeah.
calendar and looking ahead and, juggling when new things come up. So, yeah, and the website, something I'm on all the time. So, yes.
And then as far as it relates to the item we just spoke about, obviously a refreshed brand guidelines could include colors and fonts and all of those things, including potentially a more modern-looking mark or badge of some sort. But I agree, Alderman Plufka mentioned the existing Brentwood logo. This is probably a case where that would be a legacy logo maybe to live. But as it relates to anything that might come back from that response, is it fairly easy to update some of those things, fonts and colors, or will that have to wait until another major refresh?
Well, I think I've been involved in rebranding projects before. It's really extensive. So I think just making sure you all understand that any change to our brand elements, think of all the things where we
yeah.
have our brand like that. So that would be either we're paying for a website redesign sooner than we are scheduled to have one, which would be more expensive, or we wait a few years.
So that's not something you're able to change certain aesthetic things or
Well, I
anything
think it would depend on what we're talking about.
It has to be a phased
Yeah.
approach. I think there's going to be elements of it that we can easily incorporate if we're changing out the logo. But if we have to change all our business cards or letter template.
And I'm talking
and-
about the
Just the color?
digital aspect of being, for example, if some of the colors change, or the recommendation comes back and we approve something like that.
Yeah, that would be it would be an expense if we did it in advance of when we're
Of a
scheduled
refresh,
to.
okay.
Because
And
they
what did you
do all of that for us. We
For
just
you,
tell them, this is what we want
We would-
it to look
yeah,
like.
we'd work
They
with
do
them.
all that for us. So if we're going to, Civic Plus, the host of the website.
So we have to put in a request to have changes
Right.
like that.
Right.
Well,
That's not something
something that
you-
would change the design would be, yeah,
Okay.
be an expense.
But
We're
you-
already paying for the changes that you are seeing now. We paid for those like 2 years ago. It just takes
Yeah.
time. So if we're going to incorporate that, knowing we're going to incorporate that, then we should, as we start to work on the budget for '24, then we need to talk about how much would it cost to incorporate all these new design elements
Sure.
into it.
Understood. Go ahead.
So I'm confused, I'm just confused. So if this committee, after the RFP comes in and we see the proposals and we vote on a package that then goes up to the Board of Aldermen, is it adopted by the Board of Aldermen? And that package includes the use of a font, the use of badging, the colors. And let's say some of the things that they take when they're doing their RFP, when they're responding to the RFP, whoever the company is that wants to provide us these designs looks at this website and says, oh, I kind of like the green and I kind of like the blue and I want to adopt that and I'm going to incorporate that. I may even like to use the B, the typeset of the B, but only the B and in a circle or in some other design that would be different badging of a different color and things like that. Are you telling me that once that gets approved by the board, let's say we move at lightning speed, and in December of 2023, the board approves this new package of branding? Don't think that's possible, but let's say that happens. We're going to have to wait years
There
before
are,
it's put onto
not
the website?
years,
Okay.
there are elements of it that we can incorporate immediately.
Okay.
But it can't be wholesale for staff to just do by itself write that.
But for instance, let's say one of the things is the change of this, which and I'm not saying I don't like, I like the design, and I love, the color scheme is better than it was. The brown was not great, in my opinion, and this is much better. And I especially like the shade of green. I think it's kind of a color that you could, if you used it a lot of different places, people could start to recognize that, oh, that's Brentwood's green. You know, that's their thing. But let's say they replace the Brentwood badge where that is in the upper left-hand corner with just a B in some stylized way, right? That space, I mean, with the, vector examples, digital examples of this newly designed thing that are provided to you as a resource, that you'll have them to incorporate them in the dozens of different ways you're going to use them. That's not something you could change on the website?
It would depend on where we're talking. Like, for that particular, if you're talking about the logo that's in the upper left on the homepage,
Splash page, or whatever you call it.
that's really incorporated in the frame of the design. So that would be something that, it would depend on how extensive we're talking.
Some she can do,
Yeah.
others they can do. It's a combination of both.
It just
Okay.
depends on what we're talking.
And do we pay them an
We paid for
annual-
this redesign, and there is a so-called subscription.
We pay a hosting fee annually, and built within that is, we're paying for a redesign every few years.
So help me understand. So on the stuff that needs to be changed, a calendar, for instance, that needs to be updated maybe daily or at least weekly, is that something you initiate?
Oh, I'm doing that,
or-
yeah. The
okay. And
content-
you have the ability to go into the website and make those changes.
Absolutely. The content, really almost all the content, the page organization, for the most part, that's me, yeah.
Because it's unlikely that the branding is going to extend itself to changing the format of this. I mean,
Structure.
the structure.
Well,
of it,
again,
right,
I think
with the
it-
exception of the badging.
It depends on what we're talking about with the rebranding, because,
Yeah, but
it can be
I
very,
think that because we are part of a municipal website host package, there's some structure that you have to kind of stay within.
You're
right?
right.
It's not, we can do anything we want with the website.
Well, I
And-
think
And any
that's,
rebranding
that,
person would
yeah,
need
we
to-
do have a lot of leeway, but I think, again, it depends on what we're talking about. If we're changing a logo, or, the extent of any,
Or the font.
right.
So it just depends. I think that a lot of this is
and-
doable. It just
I
depends.
mean, there's going to be a cost involved.
Yeah.
It just depends on what we're talking.
And I think that's fair but I'm sure as long as functionality and main framework and structure of the site wasn't really modified that much,
Right.
I'm sure it'd be a fairly nominal cost
Yeah.
for maintenance cost, right? And do we have anything in our agreement? I know we have a hosting, charge every month, and then we have sort of the larger redesigns every, however, so often every few years. Is there also built in a set number of maintenance times that we can go and, update some things here and there,
No, I think what we'd be talking about would just be a refresh or a redesign, depending on the extent of it, just sooner than we would anticipate. So it would just be,
And it could be,
we're
it could be a
doing-
small nominal
we're doing
cost,
another
or it could
redesign
be-
in a year. That would just be,
Okay.
So as you
But-
all are thinking about, implementation phase, of course, we don't have any idea
Right.
what the cost would be, but we need to start thinking, since we're going to do this sooner, what is and maybe Janet can help with the conversation with Civic Plus, how much should we budget for next year if we want to make this and this type change or changes to the website?
I think that's smart to at least have that plan.
and I think the website's just one small impact that a
Oh, yeah.
rebrand would have.
The other's the
100%.
business card, the template, the signage, everything else.
Everything we do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Presentation templates, everything that
Yeah.
is going on.
No, not much.
Okay. Great. Well, I mean, I appreciate the work you've done, Janet, because I know it requires a lot to
Yes.
do this. And it's, like Alderman Plufka said, it's a vast improvement. I'm really glad to see the brown and orange is gone.
I am too. I look at the website all day, every day.
Yes.
So I appreciate it very much myself.
Yep. And I like the vibrancy of the photography, you know, so that it's not so muted all the time. So I think that's.
And really the focus,
some-
you know, focusing on the green, that's something that we've incorporated in, you know, other things we do. So that's
Yep.
really
Yep.
just getting that green, bringing the green to the forefront on the website as well.
Great. Any other comments, feedback from anybody on that? All right. Thank you very much for that report. Next on the agenda is the consent agenda. We have 2 items on there. The minutes from previous meetings. You all read those? Okay. I'd like to have a motion if to
So moved.
Second?
voice vote or?
Yes.
Okay. All those in favor for approving the consent agenda, say aye.
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 The consent agenda is approved. Next item is citizen comments. I don't know that there's anybody on.
There is no one online.
Okay. And seeing no further business, this meeting is adjourned.